Thanks very much, Leanne. There's an air of anticipation here, of course, following the reports where many people, some people were calling for the judge to resign, other people calling for a postponement, asking for certain issues to be clarified. We are told that there is definitely no postponement. The commission is going to go ahead as expected, and Judge Seriti will be making his opening remarks, clarifying a few things and hopefully laying certain matters to rest. But of course, the man everyone is looking forward to hearing from, among other people, is Terry Crawford Browne, as you mentioned, because Terry Crawford Browne indeed took President Jacob Zuma to court to demand that this hearing be held. And over the years, he is, of course, one of the people who were foremost in trying to get this commission to be done. Terry, let me speak to you about your feelings this morning. I know that there are several issues that you've raised over the past few days and months, reservations that you have. We'll get into those in a while. But what I want to ask you, to start by asking you, is whether overall you are happy that finally, after all these years, this commission, the public hearings that is going underway.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Yes, it's been a long, long time since the 1996 to 1998 Defence Review in Parliament. And in 1999, Archbishop Ndungane first called for an investigation, and there's been huge efforts to cover up the scandal. Books have been written, and up until 2010, the response from government was there was no case to answer. Finally, in 2010, they admitted there was a mountain of evidence of corruption, 460 boxes and 4.7 million computer pages of evidence just against BAE alone, let alone the German frigate and German submarine consortium. So there's a mountain of evidence. Books have been written. It's been a long, long time in coming. But I do think also the climate has changed internationally, that whereas in the 90s it was not illegal in English law to bribe foreigners, and in Germany bribes were even tax deductible as a useful business expense, the pendulum has swung internationally, and of course thanks to the internet, thanks to the media, there's much, much more exposure on issues of corruption which are now deemed to be a very serious security matter.
Now, it's a question you've probably been asked before. What made you feel so that it is so necessary for you to actually follow this process, to be consistent, to be persistent? What drove you to actually really lead this campaign?
Well, I was appointed by Archbishop Ndungane to represent the Anglican Church at the Defence Review. And our stance was there was no conceivable foreign threat to South Africa. The threat was poverty. That as a consequence of the apartheid era, the legacies of the apartheid era, education, health, job creation, housing, those were the priorities, not buying weapons against a non-existent foreign enemy. And when the armaments industry and Arms Corps and the Department of Trade and Industry dressed it up with the absurdity that if we spent 30 billion rand on warships and warplanes, the European armaments industry would invest back 110 billion in offsets that would create 65,000 jobs. My banking background said this is just an invitation to corruption. And very soon the evidence flowed of bribes being laundered through Swedish trade unions to ANC politicians. And when I got confirmation from Sweden, I asked through contacts in London, I asked the British government to investigate. Scotland Yard was appointed, and it came back it was not illegal in English law in 1998, 1999 to bribe foreigners. And so that then led to eventually whistleblowers approaching me, and they said the arms deal is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's much, much bigger than the arms deal. It's oil deals, it's Cell C, it's driver's licenses, it's Kucha, it's diamond deals, it's drug deals, and it's money laundering. And the common denominator to this is 10% kickback to the ANC for political protection. So it was on a scale much, much bigger than I was talking about. And why, sadly, there has been these attempts to cover up the scandal, and in the process have only compounded the problems.
Now, a lot of the information is out there in the public domain. I mean, the prosecutions that have happened as a result, the matter of like Tony Yengeni and so on. Is there new information that you're planning to put before the commission, apart from the stuff that we know about already or that has been reported on and the fallouts that we've seen? Is there new stuff that you'll be bringing to the attention of the commission?
Well, I have made two submissions, written submissions to the Commission in June 2012 and December 2012. And there are 6 terms of reference that the Commission was required to investigate, and 3 of those deal with offsets. So the first issue is the rationale. The rationale was you spend 30 billion on armaments, you'll get 110 billion back, and that'll create 65,000 jobs. That has been totally discredited now. We didn't get the jobs, we didn't get the technology. But my argument is that it fails Section 217 of the Constitution, which require government procurements to be conducted in accordance with the system, which is open, transparent, competitive and cost-effective. It clearly failed that, and therefore the arms deal was unconstitutional, illegal and fraudulent right from inception. It's unfixable, it's fraudulent, and the international remedy for fraud is to cancel the contracts, return the equipment and to recover the money. Now, we haven't in fact yet paid for the arms deal. We've borrowed money. In the case of the BAE contracts, we borrowed from Barclays Bank until 2019. And so that issue needs to be really investigated. And that is really the 6th term of reference. What would be the consequences of cancellation of those contracts? Because the contracts are guaranteed by the British and the German governments, and I would suggest that they are the ones who should be questioned as to why they put massive pressure on our government to buy weapons they knew we didn't need and could not afford when we had so many other social priorities that were far more pressing.
Now, among the concerns that you have is the fact that the ANC has not been subpoenaed, and indications at this stage are that it won't be subpoenaed. Why do you feel so strongly that the ANC should be subpoenaed?
Well, amongst the documents I submitted to the Constitutional Court were 160 pages of affidavits from the Serious Fraud Office in England and the old Scorpions here that detail how and why BAE paid bribes of £115 million, let's say 1.5 billion rand, who those bribes were paid to and which bank accounts were credited. And the primary recipient of those bribes was Fana Shlangwana, who was the assistant to Joe Modise. And the others were simply bagmen who would find conduits to fund the ANC. You'll recall that in March 2010, the National Prosecuting Authority refused to seize an estimated 200 million rands worth of bribes that had been paid to Fana Shlangwana by BAE into accounts in Liechtenstein. The judge involved was so astounded that the National Prosecuting Authority refused to seize those funds that he put about 500 pages of documents into the public register. So the issue is why the cover-up, it only compounds the issues. I think the major fault lies in the pressure that was put on our government to buy weapons we didn't need, and that, of course, internationally, the armaments industry is notoriously corrupt. It's noted for corruption, but how do you fund political parties except by kickbacks from arms deals?
Mr. Crawford Browne, I have to thank you very much for joining us this morning. And of course, it is the hope of every South African that this commission will indeed get to the bottom of those issues for the sake of everybody and for the sake of our country. Well, Ian, I'm going to hand back.